This episode of Super Pulp Science is brought to you by The Automatic Age by G&B Kamichuk. The story of a father and son navigating an automated apocalypse. Pick up your copy today at greatplains.nba.ca.
Attention, citizens. It's time for Super Pulp Science.
This is Super Pulp Science, where we talk about how genre gets made. I'm here with my long-suffering co-host, Justin Curry, known the world over as Chasing Artwork. Also suffering with us today on the podcast is Dan Vadeboncoeur, our fearless producer. Justin has a beef with the whole wide internet, and he's going to tell us all about it.
No beef. I just thought it'd be interesting to talk about.
I'm trying to set us up so the SEO is better. We have to be angry. We have to hate things. That's how people find stuff to see on the internet.
More interesting. So just recently, 10 days ago, the new Justice League 4-hour Snyder Cut was released. And for those of you who aren't familiar with that, the Justice League came out five years ago, right? During production of the Justice League movie, Zack Snyder's daughter passed away. So he had to step away from the project when it was almost done because of the family. And who came in? Joss Whedon came in and completed the film. And so there was one movie that was almost finished, and then another director came in, and I think there was also some panicking on the studio's end where this movie was pretty dark and pretty gritty, and they were like, make it more Avengers, make it more Marvel, Joss Whedon, like you did with the Avengers, make it more like that. So Joss Whedon did a whole bunch of reshoots and injected a bunch of jokes in there and made it more colorful and kind of more like a Marvel movie, and cut out like 80 minutes of what was a 4-hour. He had 4 hours of stuff, and so what we got was the Justice League that Joss Whedon kind of patched up and released, and it was met with pretty lukewarm reviews. I don't think anybody was super excited about the Justice League movie. No. And then on Twitter and on the internet, there was this growing movement of people who wanted to see the original vision of the movie released. They wanted the Snyder Cut released. And then that went on for a couple of years, and then COVID hit. So suddenly movie companies and you can't really make any new movies right now. You can't be producing new content because everybody has to be separated. Logistics are a nightmare. It's so hard to make new content. So I think somebody at DC went, okay, well, we've got all this unused footage. We can't be making new stuff. Like maybe we go back and we release the Snyder Cut that the internet has been clamoring for. And so they did exactly that. They spent $20 million or something like that, putting together the original edit of the movie. And I just thought that was I don't know if anything like this has really ever been done. Like there's been director cuts released of other movies. If there's enough interest for the Blade Runner director's cut, there's stuff like that released, but there's never been a movie that's kind of flopped opening and then the studio kind of went away and retooled it and released it again like they've done with this. And I think it's a really important time in film history that this happened, because now that this has happened, Solo is another one. Solo started with those two directors from the Lego movie, and the studio didn't like how it was going, so they brought in another director to finish it. Are they going to go back? Ron Howard came in and finished it. But I want to see that original version, the original vision of the Solo movie that was funny. Why not re-release Solo under that version? And then Greg and I were kind of talking how this happens in video games all the time. Video games are launched, and if they have a lukewarm launch and they're full of bugs or their features aren't quite, what people want, they'll go and they'll do a huge update and then release a patch. And then, so suddenly it's like a new game. They've fixed all these things. They've redid all these things. They've listened to their audience, and they've released a patch to make almost, make a new version of their game that people are then more excited about. there's all these examples of games that launched, didn't do so great, and then a couple patches later, suddenly they're gaining popularity and getting attention because they've been fixed, quote unquote.
It's almost like what you're describing is a scenario where the hype machine lied, and then people were upset that they were lied to. And then, like with anything, if you took more time, attention, and energy, you could actually make it good. I'm looking at you, Cyberpunk.
Rushed, right?
Yeah, too rushed, just the rush.
Well, that one actually, I think, took a very long time to put out, though. They teased that one quite
They
a
kept
long time
delaying
ago, and it was delayed and delayed. So they had a lot of time, and they didn't put it together in a good way. I haven't actually, that one, I actually bought that one. I haven't played it since it was patched, so I don't know if it's better or not. But are you talking about like this thing in film where you are talking about like a re-released vision of the film? And I do think this is similar to the director's cut scenario, because in the Blade Runner scenario, that was another example of the studio disagreeing with the director's vision, so the studio overriding Ridley Scott and forcing, the voiceover and the different ending and that kind of stuff.
How long of a gap was that between those two?
About 10 years. 10 years. I looked it up.
About 10 years. Okay, yeah. So
what a coincidence. It was just in time for the 10-year anniversary of the film, right? So there is that as well. So there's a reason for all this kind of thing. Marketing being a big part of it, right? And if they can make money off of it, hey. And it seems that this Snyder Cut has been successful in that people are enjoying it. I don't know.
I don't think any of us have seen it.
I've seen 30 minutes of it.
No, I haven't seen it. To date myself, though. You've seen 30 minutes of it. To date myself horribly with some late 90s slang, I can't help but believe that it's just all about the Benjamins. That no one's really interested in whether it's good or bad. It's just whether or not it's going to make money.
Couldn't we look at it in a nice way, though? Like if they're trying to fix their mistakes, they misread their audience, they misread the tone, and they launched a faulty product and are trying to fix it?
Yeah, I wonder. But is the only reason, we know the only reason is to try and recoup cost. And so the question becomes, to me, is it the director's wishes? I don't think I'm really that interested in seeing the Snyder Cut, because everything I've seen about it since it released just makes it seem like 4 hours of the same kind of thing. But what I will say is that he is 100% on board with it, right? Mm-hmm. He wants that movie to be made.
He never saw the original. His wife and his friend, people who were close to him, saw the original Justice League and made him promise never to go see it because it was so far removed from what he did, apparently.
But the point I'm making, I don't know if I'm making a point, but the point I'm trying to make is that if the people who were originally invested in the property are trying their best to do right by it, I'm sort of all for it. But when the studio just, like, for example, like Blade Runner is a great example where the studio got it wrong at the beginning and the director and the studio have a big falling out because, hey, listen, I told you it wouldn't work that way. And they're like, nope, you have to listen to us. And then he gets scolded and sent to his room, and then it doesn't work. And then 10 years later, they're like, well, maybe to make some money, we could try it your original way. That just,
So is it it's a way to drum up attention and hype for the re-release? Like just sales are plummeting for Blade Runner, so let's slap a new something on it and get people to buy it again.
In some cases, yes, I think that is the case. But in some cases... In other cases, a director simply does want to improve the film. George Lucas kept adding to Star Wars. He kept trying to make Star Wars better, right? And it wasn't always in conjunction with a release of the trilogy again. The first time he did,
no one told him no.
Of course not.
No. But I guess if it's yours, you can just.
That's right, and he always said he was never happy with the original version of Star Wars, so that's why he was always tinkering with it. And if you have the luxury to do that, I guess that's your prerogative.
I don't care if the whole world knows it. There have been 6 murders committed all in the same circumstances. The evidence points here.
Is there something to be said here? Like because I would argue that wasn't a good thing that he kept tinkering with Star Wars. So if this behavior continues, You know, like how many famous movies would be twisted versions of what they originally were if the director kept making a new version every couple of years?
When will it end?
At what point do you say enough is enough? Like, we have to leave. Like, how many cult classics would not be cult classics if it came out, it didn't find its audience, so they recut it in a different way to try to mass appeal? So The Big Lebowski is now like, you know, a PG-13 version of itself, and that's the version that's widely available. You know, like, if you keep changing it, you might lose that original magic. In some cases, lose something really special.
Yeah, I guess
think about Deadpool. They
comes
did
down
that with
to
Deadpool,
prerogative.
right?
Didn't they make a PG-14 version of Deadpool or something?
Didn't they release 2 versions though? Didn't they?
Yeah. Well, the original was R, and everybody said you can't do an R-rated superhero movie, and they did, and it was good, and people liked it. And then they, I think the second one was also R-rated, but they re-released at some point a special version, and they had these funny cutscenes like from The Princess Bride with Deadpool and Fred Savage. It was very funny. So that was good, but the idea of like, oh, let's make this, let's see if this would do just as well if it was rated PG-13. You know, that kind of does take away some of the magic of the first Deadpool, right? That there's a reason why that's an R-rated character.
Yeah. Another big example I wanted to bring up was The Thing, the 2011 The Thing. There's a version of that movie where it's all practical effects that nobody ever got to see because the studio or somebody came in and said the practical effects don't look good enough. They're not working for us. They're costing too much. Like, we're just going to CG it all. And so that's the version that ended up being released. And that makes me sad to think that there's a practical effects version of that movie out there that we'll never get to see.
Well, maybe. When is the 10-year anniversary of that movie?
That would be this year. Yeah. So
if there's ever a time for someone to cash in, it would be now.
Yeah.
Someone's thinking about
now. As a creative, Gregory, how would you feel if somebody with money came up to you and said, like, I love those books that you did 10 years ago, but I want you to update them where all the guns are changed to walkie-talkies.
Right. And I was just thinking of E.T. and the walkie-talkie debate. I don't know. Like, it's funny because there is a version of me that's recut older properties so that they fit a newer feeling, like gone back into old work or reconstituted or recontextualized. You know, as a collage artist, this is a thing I do. So there's part of me that's like, yeah, if you want to cut your thing up and put it back together another way, go for it. But then there's a part of me that's like, make new things. Just make new things. And I mean, the difference is if I'm in my studio with a pair of scissors, I have the prerogative to cut up some of my own stuff. But if you're spending $100 million making a film, and then you spend another $20 million remaking that same film, shouldn't you put that $20 million into some new idea? I don't know. I'm conflicted about all this because my son is playing the new version of, like, the updated version of Shadow of Colossus, and I couldn't be happier because on the new, like, on, I guess he's on PS4 or whatever he's playing it, that slightly upgraded version is fantastic.
Did they change much, or did they just make the graphics prettier? Because I've only played the original. Yeah, they've just made it prettier.
As I can tell, just prettier. But
because it was a perfect game to begin with. So
exactly. So all they did was they made the resolution slightly better, right? And I guess the poly count go up. Is that the proper lingo, video game guy?
Yeah. See, and I have examples of pieces of artwork that I traveled around with for like a year of one version of it, and it didn't sit with me. Like I kind of rushed it to get it printed, and I knew I could tweak it and make it better. So I spent like another, just an evening on a piece, changed the color scheme, printed it, and it became like a bestseller like overnight just because I tinkered with it. So the original release was kind of lackluster, and then I changed some things and it became much more profitable. So I see where they're coming from.
I had an what was it? It was a piece of fan art. It was an Aliens print that I had done. And when I did it originally, I loved it. I was so impressed with, I tried a bunch of new stuff, and I had done something that I really thought was original, and I changed the color scheme essentially.
Is that the astronaut with the hand coming down, reaching for the astronaut's head? The
flare, yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, with the flare. Yeah, he was holding the flare. Yeah.
And it was all reds, and it was not a scene that appeared in any film. It was just sort of my version of a scene. And the Explorer has this like flare, and it's filled the whole cavern with this red glow. And I thought those xenomorphs looked pretty great, awash in red light. Not a single human being agreed with me, though, it seemed, when I had it around. And I liked it so much, I went back and I was like, okay, well, what is it? I went back and I still wanted to try something else. So I took like an oil slick texture, and I tried to make the colors now look like white light, and all the surfaces are kind of like the same thing that you'd see if a little bit of oil was in a puddle, that sort of rainbow scintillation.
Mm-hmm.
So I did a version of it like that. And, that's the mood that matches what people expect from that franchise. And then they wanted it. And so sometimes your original idea is the wrong fit for something that people recognize. But
so were you doing that for yourself, or were you doing that to please your audience?
Well, I did the second one because I loved that piece, and I was like, why does no one like this? This piece is a great piece. Hey, idiot, right. Come over here. Look how great this is what your like ego is screaming. But then I was like, well, if I'm going to try something new, I'll try at least a new approach to the coloring. So I didn't just like go back to Ridley Scott colors. I went and tried to figure out something that was also sort of stolen from nature. I went and took some photo reference of like oily ponds and gross stuff and tried to figure it out, so yeah. But I mean, that's the other thing we're using when you're talking about fan art. You're talking about something that actually is something that people are going to recognize as its own thing, and so they want it to taste the same, if you will. But when you're making something new, you can feel very disappointed if it doesn't grip an audience right away. That's true.
Well, we've been talking about franchises. We've been talking about, the Justice League isn't an original idea. So it's, I think, talking about fan art in the same breath as talking about Justice League movie is fair game.
Here's
right.
my take on the whole Justice League thing, the Snyder Cut, is that, like, for me to re-release a 4-hour movie, that's something that is for the existing fans. It's not likely to bring in a lot of new fans to the Justice League. So that seems to me that the film is being made. It is being made, yes, to make money. Warner Brothers wants to make more money on it, but also it does meet a demand rather. It meets the demand. For some people wanted to see this, and those people seem to be receiving it well. So I think that it's good to have another version of it. You can choose.
And what do you think about this? The fact that it's a 4-hour version.
I mean, I don't think.
Well, you're watching it at home.
Yeah, that's true. But I honestly don't believe that. I don't buy that it was intended to be originally a 4-hour. It would never have been 4 hours in its original. If nothing had happened and Zack Snyder had gone on to finish it as planned, it would have been like a 3, maybe 3.5.
I think at one point they were playing around with it being 2 movies. I don't know at what point that got scrapped.
That would be like a Kill Bill 1 and 2 kind of situation, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that would be fine too. And then I had also heard at one point after when they kept talking about this Snyder Cut and how long it was going to be, there were some people saying they should do a series, right? Because a lot of this kind of stuff is being released as like series. You look at things like The Mandalorian and WandaVision and the Winter Soldier show, and it's just as good as movies, right?
If you might suffer sunstroke, might you not suffer some similar evil from the rays of the moon?
Moonstruck, you mean?
Exactly.
I wonder if all this armchair philosophizing about, like, well, why don't they just make it a series? These are people, and myself included, I often am like this. I'm like, oh, you should have just done that. But then when you think of the dollars and cents, these days, if you have a movie, say, in the $50 million or up range, right? And these movies are much more expensive than that. Then you're spending at least equal to the budget of your film promoting it.
Mhm.
So if you spent $300 million making your movie, you have to spend another $300 million promoting it. And so now if you're doing 2 films, now you need more than $1 billion. Like, it's not just like, oh, well, we should do this because it makes sense, right? People are still slaves to the budgetary constraints of what the market will bear at what time and what crews are available and who can do that CGI and what rendering farms are there. You know, there's so many. It's so easy to sit back right now and say, hashtag release the, chasing artwork cut. But, right, that's all we're doing is just being crybabies and like, oh, that movie didn't turn out the way I liked it. Make another one. Make another version.
I think this is inherently the problem. This is the problem, is that these people got what they wanted. They got the Snyder Cut. Now there's a demand. I saw a new thing, a demand for the Snyderverse to come back. So the entire plan was to have all these movies connected and to continue on with that, which I think DC is kind of, Warner Brothers rather, is kind of abandoned that, and they're looking at a more single kind of release movies and that kind of thing. They're not looking to connect it all together anymore. I thought, anyway.
This is all Sonic the Hedgehog's fault because the internet bullied that company into changing the design.
I agree with that bullying. I don't know if I can do that. Can I agree with bullying? But I think in that case they did improve the CGI of Sonic.
Yeah, it was fun. It's neat. I think this I think we've all been kind of seeing it for years. The amount of time people kind of sit and consume media has been changing a lot. So like the idea of watching an entire series over like a couple of days or even like in 2 or 3 sittings, like a couple of years ago, that was unheard of. That was like, you had like box sets of DVDs and stuff. But now like people are consuming so much media so quickly. I think we're going to see more and more 3-4 hour movies being like a common thing, just because people are used to consuming so much more. I think that's going to become the standard. I think we're seeing a shift in view times.
Really?
For movies.
Oh,
yeah, I think so.
Maybe I think I seem to have heard something similar.
Bad for us, though.
Is it bad for us?
What's bad for us?
It's so bad for us. Like, well, just think of it like this. Like, when you're talking to people who are binging a show, I was talking to our friend James about this recently, Justin, that you're binging a show and you're talking to someone else who's just binged it, and you ask them to name even 2 of the characters. They can't, right? You ask them to like pontificate on a subplot or like a particular shot or like a pacing issue. They can't. It just washes over them as this glut of media. And I just wonder, right? Are we going to just see a sharp decline in quality as we increase the quantity?
It's not special anymore. You don't have to go to Blockbuster and take time to pick out your movie. You can just watch 3 amazing movies back to back to back for $5 a month.
I watched the documentary, The Last Blockbuster.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to say that as they were panning that camera through the blockbuster, I could feel it in my heart, how I longed for a slow media to return. But now I'm just an old man shouting at clouds. So, right? I wonder. But, we're talking about re-releasing projects of our own and doing some tweaks to it. A 1.5 version of a book where it's got some more back matter and things like that. We've talked about that. So if it's just what people want, I guess.
Yeah. So we're doing that because we ran out of the first run of the book. It's pretty much done. People still want to buy the book. So rather than reprint it exactly as is, we thought, why not give people some added value and add a couple more pages of back matter and previews of the next steps of the project and stuff like that.
Yeah, the book in question,
that-
dear listener, is Cassie and Tonk, which we're functionally sold out of.
When did you
That
first
feels like
publish
we've
that
got
book?
our
When's the anniversary?
2014. 2014.
Your anniversary. Okay, sure.
But
it
that
doesn't
feels
have
like
to-
we've got our wholesome hats on more than our business hats for that one.
It's both though. It's okay that it's
Yeah.
both. You know, like, that's what I'm trying to say. Like it's there's always going to be a reason for a re-release. People are going to want, there's an anniversary to celebrate, or there's a different person came in to direct it or whatever. But for the most part, people seem to like. I can't think of a time where a re-release was not like a good thing, as far as like it improved the original product. Maybe in the case of Star Wars, maybe. But
E.T.'s horrible catastrophe.
That's true. And that was, but didn't they put it back to the regular way now?
Yeah, because then they tried it. They're like, you know what people want? They want this movie to be totally a vanilla ice cream cone. And then people were like, no, gross. And they're like, okay, we're going to change it back to what it was. Perfect.
Sprinkles again.
Yeah. So strange. So strange. Yeah, I don't know. This whole re-release, repackage, re-up thing, because we're going to have to rebrand, right? We're going to have to relaunch into the world of shows again. And I was just thinking about this. I was talking to Tara. I was like, yeah, if I had to go to a show tomorrow, I have 3 brand new books that no one has ever really seen of on the show floor. I have to recreate my entire setup, and I'm sort of glad I don't have to do it anytime soon. But I'm essentially going to be completely unrecognizable simply for the amount of new content.
Yeah.
When I show up again, should shows ever return? 2023 now.
When?
More likely.
When shows?
When? Yeah.
When? Uh-huh.
So the other thing that I wanted to talk about on the podcast and bring up was I've been listening to Dan Harmon's podcast recently, Harmontown, where Harmontown takes place. Season 3 of Community came out, and Dan Harmon was fired from the network. He's quite the character. I think he's pretty hard to work with. So yeah, he was fired from Community, and he kind of took some time off to do a podcast. And the format of his podcast is kind of weird. He's basically in the back of a comic book store, and he's drinking the whole time, and he's playing D&D half the time, and he's just talking about stuff. And as you go along in the podcast, at one point, this is like 2013 is when I'm starting. So at one point in the podcast here, he's talking about how like he's still, Community has continued on without him. It's like season 4, which was a bad season. And he is in the middle of pitching 2 new sitcoms, like one to Fox and one to like CBS. And he's like really stressed out about these pitches and like the amount of work and effort and how much heart he's putting into them. And then he's also got this little side project that he's doing with Adult Swim that nobody's ever going to see, about this mad scientist and his nephew having adventures. Nobody's going to see it, but it's like he loves how it's turning out, but it's probably going nowhere. But anyways, back to like the pilots
Rick
of
and
these
Morty,
like
what
new
we're talking about, his like
and that was like the first time he talked about Rick and Morty, as it was like a back burner, like this is just for fun. This is like my stress outlet that's probably not going to go anywhere, but I love it the most. But it was just so funny to hear about how all his focus went into some pitches that never went anywhere. And then this little project that became the empire that is Rick and Morty. Like that's a massive, massive franchise now. And I just love how it started as like just a thing I'm trying on the side of like all my other things.
This brings us back to my point about integrity and like interest and like what it is that you're motivated in doing, right? The thing
Yes.
he was finding solace in creating turned out to be the thing that, whether you like Rick and Morty or not, it's definitely not to everyone's taste. It is certainly of a particular person's taste. Like it is incredibly of a thing, right? It's its own thing.
Yeah, I don't think they take any notes from that network on that show. Or it doesn't seem like they do, right? It's a pretty raw show, and I
Oh my
love that
goodness.
it's gotten as popular and as huge as it has. I think they're greenlit for like another 100 episodes in a movie or something. At this point, they're just throwing money at the franchise because it's so successful.
Well, and that's the thing, right? So if he really wanted to make a community show like Community, he could have, but he didn't. So he went off and did a different thing.
I think he did want to. He didn't get greenlit.
He did end up going back to Community after that.
And he did go back to Community, yeah.
That's right. After I believe sexual harassment issue was solved. Solved. I hang air quotes over that. There's a really for anyone interested as to the deep dark side of why he got fired from Community, look up the Dan Harmon apology. It's actually really interesting. We won't belabor it here, but it's a very long explanation in his own words about everything he did wrong. And I have to say, it's pretty raw and surprising that someone in that kind of position would just own up to everything bad, right?
Only stiffs go in there tonight.
No kidding.
No kidding.
What's keeping you out?
What?
Oh, nice job. Sorry, I got interrupted by my children who have taken their very first self-directed trip to 7-Eleven on their own.
Oh,
that's a rite of passage.
Yeah, they had switchblades in their pockets. They had a crayon-drawn map of where they were going, and they've just returned. So I apologize for the interruption, but I'm glad to see you guys have arrived safely.
Oh, man.
But yeah, anyway, we won't belabor that, but people should look it up. It's worth it. It's in this cancel culture movement. It's really interesting to see somebody who's like, actually, yep, I was terrible, and here's all the ways I was terrible. Nobody has to forgive me. I don't expect you to. And then he belabors it by explaining in vivid detail everything that he's ever done wrong. Like, I don't know how, once you admit to it, you don't get sued into oblivion, but I guess he had some legal advice. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
but
the point I was...
Community, which is your point, I think.
Sorry? He
didn't recut. He didn't go back and redo season 3. He just made season 4.
No, my point with this is have a lot of irons in the fire, because you never know what's going to be the one that's going to make you the happiest and be the most successful thing, right? You shouldn't just... He was putting all his hopes and dreams into these 2 pitches, and the thing he was having fun with on the side was what ended up being his bread and butter. You know,
yeah, that's so true. So many things.
Mm-hmm.
So many things. There's this great. Okay, so here's a funny aside from that. I've been down the rabbit hole of old Monty Python, as every basically male of my vintage tends to do at some point in their life. They go down the Monty Python rabbit hole. But learning how John Cleese made all of his money making instructional videos for corporations, not from Python, but yeah. And they're like
his fame.
Sorry, what?
I said Meetings, Bloody Meetings. That's the name of one of the videos that he did. I watched it in college.
There's so many.
Yeah.
There are so many of them, and they're actually hilarious. They're like parody videos of how corporations run, and he sold them to corporations about how they could run better.
So corporations were hiring him to make legit how-to videos.
That's right. Using humor to train people, right? And how to like sort of harness creativity in the workplace. And then his videos would be about how your boss will never let you do this because he's a soul-sucking monster, you know, like this kind of stuff. Just absolutely hilarious. But it marries these 2 ideas of like a person that wants to be subversive. They want to talk truth to power. And the only person that can afford to pay for it is the power itself. So then you sell it to that power, right? And that's kind of like the perfect scenario. Is like if you can find a way. Rick and Morty is like that. It makes fun of corporate television. It makes fun of network television. It makes fun of all kinds of cartoon tropes. It
All
makes
of its
fun of
sponsors, like its sponsorship commercials, are just them ripping apart Wendy's or Pringles or. We're in a Pringles ad, Morty.
And so it's like, if you can figure out some way to make it work, but you got to be careful not to parody yourself. Like, this is what I'm saying is all the stuff I've seen about the Snyder cut of Justice League, it feels like a parody of itself. Like, it feels like Zack Snyder making a movie that's making fun of other Zack Snyder movies I've seen. When I see the trailer, the new trailer for Justice League, all in slow motion in the rain to Leonard Cohen, I'm like, oh, you're making fun of all your other movies. Wait, no, you're not. No, this is your style of cinema. Okay.
That's right. That's right. That's what it is. Right?
Do I like that style of cinema? I really did in The Watchmen, I'll admit.
I did in 300.
Yeah, 300. Yeah. But
so does it feel insincere to you, this Snyder cut?
I guess I don't know. That's what I mean. Like, he's so into having done it. So I guess good for him that the people with the keys to the kingdom said yes and opened their checkbook to make it work. I mean, like, there are a lot of projects you and I have done where if someone came to us and said, we love this, here's a check for however much money, make it bigger than you've ever dreamed making something, and we're going to promote
change the guns to walkie-talkies and we'll promote the heck out of it.
Maybe I would, just because I have never done that before. That'd be one of my reasons to do it, is that I haven't done it before.
Yeah, my answer immediately goes to, like, okay, if I can do that on that project, that'll feed all my other projects that I get to do. Like, if I sell out over here, I get to create over here.
It is what you end up starting to think about. But there is, I wonder, that's a death by 1,000 cuts. But then on the same side, look at how we're criticizing or not criticizing or whatever. We're casting a lot of shade on a lot of different properties right now. That's just the price of being known, right? Everyone now has an opinion of you. And so half of the people will like you and half of the people won't like you. And that's just how it is. But if half of the people is like 100 million downloads at $20 a pop, I think you're probably okay to accept the hatred. I don't know if I would be. I'm not made of sternest stuff.
Cross that bridge when you get to it.
Yeah, I wonder. And there's a lot of talk right now about like fan discourse being, I mean, this is in Bookland. Does fan discourse, meaning everyone talking about what their favorite is, why it's that way, who should, what character should be with what other character, how the story should end, all that stuff, that it should never be directed at the author.
Yeah, no, they're idiots. Never listen to them.
Right? But it's impossible to be a living author and not see what your fans think about if you are participating in what your publisher insists is promotion, which is engaging with fans about their theories.
Can't do that. I feel like there's a famous example of an author creative listening to the fans and giving them exactly what they wanted, and it flopping horribly. They changed an ending or did something. God. Anyways, don't do it. People don't know what they want until you give it to them, right? So if you listen to them, it's not going to turn out.
And this is, okay, we're going to get high-minded for a second. We're going to get high-minded. In the grand discourse of storytelling, the printed page, right, a story being one way, is relatively new to human history, right? Just the last couple hundred years, you had a version of a book. There's the definitive version of Dracula, for example. It's that version. But if it had existed as a fable or as an oral history or existed like, the Odyssey or the Iliad, right, as an oral tradition for centuries, you would have all these different versions. If you go looking for Sigurd and the Dragon, you find all kinds of different versions. There are considered to be the definitive version, but what makes it definitive is just that it sold more copies than another these days. It used to be that people would tell whatever story of Baba Yaga they wanted, whatever suited them, in order to get their point across. And now we've got this idea that like this version of the story is my favorite. It's the one that has to be, and you shouldn't retell it. But the long tradition of stories are that you retell them and they're different. Right?
So should a story never be set in stone, in your opinion?
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like,
yeah,
you know, there is, and again, it's as soon as a dollar gets attached to it, you have the fights, right? The reason why you have to have copyright is so that a publisher can say, this is our version, no one else's. When William Shakespeare he was one of the first people to try and make money off his own plays because people were showing up in the audience, copying down his plays word for word, then taking them to the printing presses and having them produced and then selling copies of his plays. And it incensed him that the versions they were purchasing were the wrong versions. They were some other person's copy of a copy of a copy, and realized that he could make money if he made his own versions. But even those versions, they're not all the same, right? If you go back into the history of that stuff, you start to see that revisionist idea. And so now we come back around. So I guess it's okay if George Lucas puts in walkie-talkies because that's the version he wanted that year. And if Darth Vader or Spielberg, pardon me. So, but I thought him and Lucas worked together to make that happen.
Oh, maybe. I don't know. Was he involved in that? He was. I don't think he was a producer on E.T. I think he was. They just did the Indiana Jones movies together, right?
Good evening, Professor Duke. How are you feeling tonight?
Horrible.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that.
Well, if it makes you feel sorry to hear things like that, then don't ask questions.
And if you're going to retell the story of Star Wars, I think it'd be more compelling to retell it from Leia's perspective from the beginning. So maybe that's what I'm going to start telling, right? Or that maybe Leia is Vader, after all. He pulls off the mask and it's Leia under there, right? Luke, I am your sister. Hey, how you doing? Remember that time we kissed passionately?
They were never brother and sister, and their kissing got more and more, and they become romantically involved, and Han is just kind of tossed to the curb.
Or they are brother and sister, and now it's Game of Thrones.
So now this is just fan fiction, you guys.
Well, but the point I'm making is that anytime you retell a story, it's fan fiction, right? In fact, any story told through the lens of another speaker becomes a different story, right? Because your own bias, your own internal mechanisms sort the information according to your own preferences and then spit out a version of it, right? If I tell you the version of a movie I love and you tell me a version of that same movie but you don't like it, we're not going to tell the same version of the story.
It's true.
Right? And then that it comes around to another, I think, important facet of the argument is that not every story is for every person. And this predilection of saying, okay, we're going to make a mainstream story and it has to be representative of as many different cultures as we can shoehorn into it on the screen. But they don't make it the point of the story. They're just trying to shoehorn in stuff because someone is saying, this is how you make a multicultural show now. It shows, right? It shows up and you realize that it falls flat. Whereas shows that are coming from a more honest place, telling a story that is, not the white male privilege, cisgen, point of view, say, and they're doing it because it's their passion to do that. Those stories are amazing. They carry themselves forward, right?
You reminded me of that all the women lineup in Endgame, Avengers Endgame, where there's that scene during the battle where all the girls get together just for a photo shoot, and then that took me out of the movie. Moment. Oh, yeah, it's bad.
Totally pandering. Yeah. I would have preferred a scene there if you were going to do the same thing. I don't have daughters, but my friends who do have daughters, their daughters love that scene. So that's amazing.
My daughter didn't.
I would have had the whole cast. I would have had the whole cast together and had the men all get picked off as they're charging forward, right? Like all the big macho bravado, they got picked off, and then the ladies are still standing. That would have been actually funny instead of such a like, here's the men, now here's the women, right? That actually sets up the wrong, I don't know. But also,
Just
I didn't have $500 million to make that movie,
Yeah.
so I don't get to call
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, any scenes or shows that just seem to be more dripping with the marketing's fingers on it than like the marketing team having too much control versus somebody creative trying to tell a story. Yeah, that bugs me. And is it getting worse or is it getting better?
We've talked about that too. I wonder. Worse sometimes and better other times. I don't know.
It's going to depend on how this whole theater thing shakes out.
Anger.
We did see, I've been thinking about it. We did see a bit of a surge of director's cuts and alternate cuts and new versions in the 90s, late 90s, early 2000s when DVDs were really
DVDs
big.
came out.
And so they were selling a lot of box sets and a lot of collector's discs. And I mean, those kinds of things still do exist. I mean, I'm sure they're going to release a box set of Justice League Snyder Cut, very nice, you know, and all that fancy stuff. And there will be an audience for that. But for the most part, people don't buy physical DVDs anymore. So that's
theaters.
My mic is screwing up. Okay, here we go. If theaters go away, then that's kind of not. There's not going to be an occasion to like. That's another reason that people go see movies in the theaters to see it again in the theater. Do you know what I mean? Like that takes away another option for re-releases, is what I'm saying. Because I mean, I went to
Terminator 2 was re-released in theaters. Yeah, that was great.
I went to see that in the theater.
It's so good, and it's so good to see, and especially for films that you didn't see the first time around. Like I didn't see The Exorcist the first time around, but they re-released it in the theater, like 2000, early 2000s, again around this time. And but it was a different version. It was an extended cut. I can't remember what they called it. It was a director's cut or what it was, but it was a longer version of The Exorcist with added stuff, and it was fine. I didn't mind it at all.
Did they start plopping 3D on movies, or did it have to be shot in 3D to be seen in 3D?
Both.
Were they doing that same thing?
Both. There was a conversion process. I don't think it works very well. I don't think it turned out. Most movies I saw that were converted didn't look very good. So it's always better to shoot with the right 3D cameras, I think. Why? What do you ask?
Right. No, I was just wondering if there was that same kind of surge of re-release. Like there's a new format like DVD and then Blu-ray and then, we can make things 3D. So like any excuse to re-release our product with a new sticker on it.
Yeah.
Right.
I think they should. Okay, I'm going to predict a trend in media. Re-releases of super short versions, 22-minute versions of the films and movies that you love.
Don't they do that for flights? Or something?
Yeah, they adjusted for flights. No, what I mean is like, imagine now I want to watch all the Avengers, but I don't want to catch up. God, that's so many hours, and I just want to watch the new show. So instead, I'm going to binge 20 episodes of a 22-minute version of the good parts versions, like the music video versions of these films and movies, so that you can become super film literate without having to.
Well, I mean, they have that on YouTube. They have the super cuts of, pick a series, pick a movie series, pick a TV series. On YouTube, there's some kind of like abridged version where like, all of Naruto in 10 minutes. Boom. So.
See, because I think that's really important if you want to talk about things as if you're the expert for your whole life, but you don't actually want to put in any effort to become able to attack people online for their opinions. This would be a really useful service to internet trolls. So like you could have all the great works of cinema boiled down to 10-minute versions, and then people could watch those, and then you could really get the arguments really boiling on the internet about what's good and what's bad. That's what I think.
Yeah, it exists. YouTube. Yeah. All of Avengers explained in 10 minutes by Screen.
It's usually some twerp, though.
Yeah. Be sure to like and subscribe.
It's funny that you guys mentioned this because I actually found one of these a few weeks ago. It's called 90 to 5. It's apparently an editing challenge. And it looks like they've had competitions over the years, and basically they kind of name a movie, a 90-minute long movie, or around 90 minutes, and then the challenge is to edit it down to 5 minutes, but still be able to tell the story.
Oh.
Right? So 90 to 5, 90TO5, the numeral 5. That's how you find it on YouTube. And so I'd found when I was putting in clips for, I can't remember which episode, but the clips were from the film The Colossus of New York. I found that edit, and it was so good for getting clips because they were all the good lines were all kind of in this one edit. So it was awesome. But and you look at the YouTube channel, and there's like dozens and dozens of films, and not a ton of sci-fi, but I mean, there's all kinds of genres and all kinds of movies. It's really
That's our niche. That's our niche, Dan. Quotables. That's what we'd call it. It would just be all the quotable lines from the movie all spliced together into one coherent little B storyline.
Yeah, but they're also doing things like editing some of the footage that doesn't like have a lot of dialogue. They're using that as B-roll from other dialogue, so they're like really condensing it well, and you're still able to tell the story of the film in that short amount of time. So
some professional editing. You know
really
what?
well.
I would love to see. I don't know if this has ever been really done for like normal people to see, but the raw footage of a movie given to like 3 different editors, and we get to see the 3 different movies that those editors, like one guy wanted it really dark, one guy wanted it kind of funny, one guy wanted.
I would love that.
Wouldn't that be cool? Like, here's 4 hours of raw footage, edit us a 90-minute movie, go, go, go. Kind of like Rodriguez and Tarantino, like the middle of the Dusk Till Dawn, just suddenly a different movie.
Even with my smidgen of experience on film sets, I would tell you that you could never do that. Well, I shouldn't say never, but it'd be really unlikely to pull that off for a 90-minute feature. But you could do it for a short film. You could have a short film where the cinematographer is ubiquitous. It's the same cinematographer being told by 3 different directors what shots they want, because the director is cutting that film in their head so you could have it'd be sort of like a well done play. Imagine a play where the actors are well rehearsed, where the beats are all done, where they have their own thing. A director has come in and directed that play. And then 3 film directors come in with 3 different film crews, and they're going to now cut a version of that off the same performance. That would be the way. There's actually an experiment. There's a grant proposal in that. The Canadian government gave us money to make this happen.
The lunar rays will never affect you or me, sir, because we are normal people.
Sure, but it affects strangely certain neurotic types.
Greg, you and I have talked about that before, right? Where we thought it'd be a really cool idea to take like 2 or 3 different artists, all give them the same script, and then they go away, make that comic, and see what that comic turns out, because it'd be vastly different.
Yeah, we've talked about that a few times. I'd love to do that. Yeah. Well, and even because of the way scripting works, some artists prefer a beat structure, some prefer a really tight script, some prefer to just come in after with the scripting, and to have everyone work from the same treatment, but break it down for their artists differently, and the 3 artists do it. Yeah, that would be a great experiment. If you did it for a short story, like a 10-page story, or let me just think of how the divisions would work. You could do 3 people, 7 pages each, and you could get it all in a single issue. So it'd be that same story told 3 different ways, all inside the page count of a regular comic. That could be fun.
So that must have been done. Somebody's got to have done that.
I've never seen it, and I've seen a lot of comics. I tracked down a lot of weird stuff, but I would love to see that.
That would be neat.
Who would you get if you could? Any artist that you could name now, like whether you could afford them or not. Who's some people you'd like to see do stuff differently?
Justin Curry.
I don't see, because I'd a lot of the artists that I like are kind of in a similar vein. So I'd want to do my research and find like some drastically different artists. I want somebody like, I'd want like a magical, like lowish kind of style. I'd want somebody like dark and dreary. I don't know. Yeah, I'd want 3 distinct flavors.
I think Greg would want Mike Mignola.
Oh yeah.
For sure. I would want to see. I'm just thinking of 2 like regular cuts for me would be like Dave McKean and Mike Mignola both tackling the same story. That would be an incredible diversion of styles. But also this Jesse Lonergan did a book called Hedra, which is, as far as I know, the only comics work that this person has done. And they just did an incredible job breaking down story into these tiny little panels. Love it. A departure from both Dave and Mike's style for sure. I would love to see something like that. That would be a really, how do you make that work? That's also got Canada Council for the Arts grant stamped all over it. You know what you would do to make it work? And for the dear listener who's wondering what I'm talking about, our wonderful nation has the ability to ask for money for non-commercial projects that exist in an artistic space with some modicum of integrity. So you could maybe take a historical event, right? A key historical event in Canada and have 4 or 5 artists all tell the same event, the same beat structure in their own style from their own point of view. And you could get a pretty great story out of that.
You could have the story start fairly vague too, because really how much accuracy is really in some of that old history, right? It's you're not seeing it from all angles. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that would be neat. That would be neat.
Because I participated in the book This Place, which is retelling the counter history of Canada, 150 years of Canada from the point of view of the colonized, not the colonizer. And I just illustrated Sean and Rachel's story in there. And I got to see a very different version of Canada than I had been taught growing up. So I just, there's something to that. There's something to that. And it's interesting that we got to this place, which I'm actually now very creatively invested in the concept of, from something that I was so distantly creatively interested in, which is the Snyder Cut. Like I couldn't have been less interested in an emotional expression than that. And now we're onto something. I think we're onto something here. Yeah, interesting. Let's come back for a second. We're gonna. I know I just shit all over Snyder there, but what about Man of Steel? Which I liked.
I don't.
I liked it.
I quite enjoyed it. I don't know.
People hate it. There are parts of it that I don't like.
I mean, the only part about it that I liked was the Krypton scene at the beginning. That was pretty cool.
That was neat. That was wonky. Yeah.
But that's because that's part of Superman. I mean, I wasn't that familiar with that aspect of Superman, the deep history of Superman. But certainly on film, we'd never seen that before. But I don't know. I'm like I'm in the minority though. I am also one of these people that like Superman Returns better than Man of Steel.
I loved that movie. Loved it.
I
loved it.
Got it. I don't know why they get. Sorry, my mic screwed up again. I don't know why people get so upset about Superman Returns. It's fine. It's
because he never threw a punch.
I mean, yeah, there's no great fight in it, but isn't that okay? Not every movie is for every person.
Look at the original Christopher Reeve Superman movies. Like he wasn't punching out Lex Luthor all the time. He was like going up. He was spinning around the world. He was doing stuff like that. He wasn't punching people. You know, he was catching.
Yeah, and in fact, you could argue that. Yeah, that it was him pretending to be Clark Kent that was the most enjoyable parts of those movies.
Yeah.
When we know,
that's kind of the scary thing with this remaking the movie trend, or what might become a trend, is if a movie, like a great film, is made before its time, and then it will never be discovered because it's quickly remade into a more appropriate version for the closest audience.
Oh, I hadn't thought of that. Yeah.
You're wrecking a beautiful painting that the future is going to really appreciate before they get a chance to see it.
Yeah. Although so many great works of Renaissance art are paintovers of other works of Renaissance art.
Well, how many famous artists died penniless and poor and unrecognized? And then it was only years later that people figured out that they were amazing.
I don't want to dissuade you of your illusions, Justin, but that's also now. That's also
now?
happens now all the time. Penniless artists die cold and alone, unrecognized, unrealized, unappreciated. That is, in fact, more than ever happened in all of prehistory is probably happening now because of our population. Just the sheer factoring of the math of our population means, sadly, this went to a dark place. More artists probably will die in the next decade, unfulfilled, unrealized.
It works both ways, though. There's also more successful artists and more artists making a living from their artwork than ever before.
Yeah, but is it just by percentage? Is it just always the same? Is it always like that 2% makes it and that 98% suffers? No. And the higher the population, the more suffering?
Because now we have governments who now give money, as you said, to help them out.
Oh, you can't live off that. You can just pay a few people to participate. Come on.
It gives you more of a chance to really get a foothold in there and make a living out of it.
Guys, it's been an hour. Let's wrap it up.
Well,
should we redo this podcast with a different direction? You know,
let's do the podcast over again, starting now with more jokes, less Snyder, and let's talk. What's a movie we'll talk about instead that'll be more culturally relevant? Caddyshack.
Caddyshack.
How about I'll do half of it in slow-mo so that our 1 hour podcast becomes a 3 hour.
4 hours long. I love it.
The directors. We could do like a commentary where we're watching this, listening to this podcast and commentating on what we're talking about.
Let's do a director's commentary on our podcast.
Our most successful podcast. We should go back and listen to our most successful podcast and do a commentary on it and re-release it.
That's like our heads so far up our own asses at that point that like what are you gonna do? That's incredible. Well, this has been Super Pulp Science, where we're encouraging you to remix, remake, recut, re-envision all your old work for new audiences whenever you can, because the world is a hollow shell that only wants to be fed its own dreams in tiny pieces, a bite at a time. This has been Super Pulp Science. Gregory's also encouraging you to join the fight and make comics.